come through. This is the last before Hikianalia and Hokulea, so that is coming very soon. Right now, let's head over to Keahi Tucker for a little of an update on Hokulea.
Hey, you guys, it's official. We are moving toward Magic Island right now. They just started towing about a minute ago, and we're going about 4 knots at the moment. Pretty good clip, and I think we're about to pick up a little. Take a look around, and you see all the paddlers are huffing and puffing. We're about a mile out, so they got a good distance to row here, and they're trying to keep up with the Hokulea, of course. I'm not sure if we'll go directly in all the way at this speed, or we'll just get closer and then stage. But it's extraordinary. You hear the poo sounding now? I think that's coming from the Hokulea. And you hear more in the distance. I'm not sure if you can hear it on the mic, but I'm hearing it. Let's take a look around in the background and behind the Hokulea. Flowers now on the water. People throwing flowers out, paying tribute as they paddle in. The Hawaiian flag flying proud. Oh boy, I just got chicken skin myself all over.
You can start to hear the cheers as the crowd grows here at Magic Island, and Hokulea makes its way to the mouth of the harbor.
Look at the crowds who are greeting her as she pulls in. We've been hearing the cheers throughout the morning, but this is definitely the loudest and most enthusiastic we have heard this very large crowd be here this morning.
You can see the kia'i who are standing on the floating deck that was erected specifically to allow for a point of anchor for Hokulea as she makes her way in today for her homecoming ceremony. They're there to stand guard to ensure the security, the safety of all of the crew members. And behind them, of course, you can see Hawaiian Water Patrol, the U.S. Coast Guard, our own EMS, emergency services, and lifeguards. And here she is in all her glory.
Everyone has their phones out as they capture this historic moment, a moment that has been decades in the making, with Hokulea sailing around the world for the past 3 years.
There we go, Sam. Not a single one hitting him. He either managed to deflect or to catch.
Lunai pola pola ika ika na lui ka moa nei moa na uli moa na vehi moa na li hanu ia kia mai ke ala e te ala le e na ula te ala vehi ma ave ula o papa ka vahi nei
e uia kana ia oe ai hea ka wai a kane ai ilalo I ka honua I ka vai hu I ka vai kau a kāne me kana loa. He wai puna, he wai inu, he wai mana, he wai ola, e ola no e a. When we talk about courage, and standing up what you need to stand up for, like my father would say, that act of Eddie on a surfboard, paddling to an island he cannot see, was the greatest act of courage of all time.
And we have this fire covered from all angles tonight. Let's start with Ashley Nagaoka, who is live at the scene with the very latest. Ash.
Sean, Steph, it's been about 3 hours since the call came in, and we've been watching the flames quickly spread upwards, involving at least 3 different floors. And the fire can be seen from 2 different sides of the building as well. Take a look. We are near Kapiolani Boulevard, near the entrance of the apartment complex. Emergency personnel expanded the off-limit zone around the building because the windows of some of the apartments are cracking as the fire spreads, and glass and metal and other large debris have been falling to the ground. The call came in around 2:30 3:15 this afternoon, a general evacuation of the Marco Polo building was called, but fire officials are unsure if everyone got out. There have been reports of residents trapped in their units, and there are people here on the street, emotional and frantically checking the crowds to see if their loved ones are safe. There are several apartments involved in the fire, but officials don't know how many yet.
Any high-rise fire would be very difficult, and it's very difficult when you consider getting water to the fire, also with amount of people in the building as well. So there's going to be all kinds of things that make a fire like this complex.
Several people have been treated by EMS, one person in serious condition. More than 20 fire companies are on scene with more than 60 fire personnel. There has been a fire helicopter flying around, but I'm told it's serving as more of an eye in the sky than assisting with any water drops. Now, Kapiolani Boulevard is closed right now between Houston and Pa'ani streets. Fire officials say it'll most likely be a late one for them. So if you live around here, you're being advised to avoid the area. And of course, this has been a tense and frightening day for residents who live in the building. Our Chelsea Davis continues our team coverage.
Yeah, Ash, that's right. I'm by the entrance of the Marco Polo building on Kapiolani Boulevard, where first responders have asked the residents to stand back. Some people are crying, others are in panic. A lot of people are in shock. Now, this is the view from where we are. You can still see thick black smoke billowing in the air. Every now and then you see fire just peeping out of the windows and chunks falling from the building. Now, there are reports, as we mentioned, of people still trapped inside, unable to get out. We saw some of them through their windows and talked to people who say their relatives are still inside. The fire broke out on the 26th floor, but it has since spread. I spoke with someone who lives on the 29th floor and ran down the stairs to escape.
And I started smelling smoke, and this woman was screaming help. And I looked out over the lanai, and even though the fire is on the Mauka side, the entire floor was engulfed in smoke, so the smoke was coming up, so I knew it was bad.
Hoping that everyone got out okay, that was the first thing, and then you get kind of scared because you start seeing all the wood fall and everything, so we kind of got like, oh no, what was that, you know, because you didn't know what, like that, how it's all falling right now.
Silva said a lot of elderly people live in the building, so people are obviously worried about them. We saw first responders wheeling people out in their wheelchairs, and fire officials say there are still some people who are accounted for. Now, I spoke with a gentleman who was too distraught to speak with me on camera, but he was holding his young daughter who is crying. He says his parents live in the building, but he can't get a hold of them, so he's not sure if they're safe. Now, let's send it over to Ben Gutierrez, who continues our team coverage, and he gives us a different view of the fire. Ben.
Malo, Chelsea, you can see for a lot from the ground, but you can see even more just the scope of just how much the fire has spread. Usually in a condominium fire where there are 1 or 2 units involved, maybe only that unit will be on fire. Flames are still visible from at least 2 of the units where we are, but what is more of a concern is the fact that there is smoke still pouring from the elevator shaft and also the waste stack of this building, and a lot of that smoke is also coming from the roof. That means that there is likely still more fire burning within the building that you cannot see, at least from the street or from any other vantage point. You also see just how much smoke has been coming out. We've also have smoke that is coming up of the Mackay side, the back side of the building that you cannot see. At one point, about a half hour ago, we even had black smoke billowing from the fire escape from that particular floor. That has stopped, and there are fire personnel there now. However, parts of the building that we cannot see in the interior are still on fire. That is, of course, indicated by a lot of that smoke that is still coming from the roof. That would indicate that the fire may have spread even farther up in the interior, in the hallways, through the elevator shaft, through the waste stack. Either that or all the smoke is just coming through those areas. And so we may be looking at a very large area of the building that has, at the very least, smoke damage. At least from what we can see, there's a lot of areas areas that show a lot of smoke damage where the flames have been coming out. That's also where parts of the lanai had come out and had crashed to the ground, and that's why people are keeping a perimeter. We also have just a large amount of the emergency vehicles that have been out. Kapi'olani Boulevard is completely closed, and also a lot of the smoke has been pouring into Waikiki, and it looks like it's still going to be a while before firefighters can gain at least somewhat of an upper hand on this blaze. Reporting live from Mo'iliili, Ben Gutierrez, Hawaii News Now.
Thank you very much, Ben. And another concern, we're told the winds haven't been helping firefighters.
That's right, Guy. How windy is it out there?
Hawaii News Now at 5.
Right now at 5, a plane goes down under a busy freeway.
It was just horrifying to see this thing just drop out of the air. It was like a leaf falling to the ground.
Moments later, the aircraft bursts into flames in Moanalua.
It just kept repeating that, your plane's on fire, we got to get you out.
Tonight, we hear from Good Samaritans who rushed to the scene to rescue the victims.
It started popping, or it made a couple of blasts.
Plus why first responders say it could have been much worse.
This one is very fortunate.
And we begin with a live look at the charred wreckage of that plane still under a Moanalua Freeway bridge. Now it's up to investigators to figure out just what went terribly wrong.
Witnesses watched in horror as the plane dropped from the sky, then skid to a halt under the bridge this afternoon.
The aircraft quickly then burst into flames. Here's where it all happened, just under the freeway across from the Moanalua Gardens. And amazingly, all lanes of the freeway right above the crash site remained open throughout the entire ordeal.
We have a team coverage tonight of the plane crash from 2 different vantage points near the wreckage. Let's begin with Ashley Nagaoka for the latest details. Ash.
Thanks, guys. So the cause of the crash is still unknown. Investigators are under the bridge right now looking at the wreckage, while fire crews are working to contain any leaking fuel before the aircraft is moved out of the stream. Now, an eyewitness we spoke to says he was at the nearby Texaco gas station when he saw the single-engine Piper Cherokee flying unusually low.
And the plane came over about 20-30 feet up. It didn't see any smoke or anything like that. It just made a really sharp turn and lined itself up with the canal. And the next thing I knew, it crashed underneath the bridge. So I just ran over there. First one there, they were all responsive. All the guys were alive. It was a little bit banged up, but they were all able to at least move and were conscious.
Bowen says the plane was on fire and heavily damaged, but the pilot and 2 passengers were able to get out safely. Emergency officials say the 3 men, all in their 20s, were taken to the hospital in serious condition.
In my 31 years in this business, it's extremely rare to have a plane crash in urban Honolulu. Everybody is fortunate today to come out of it with serious injuries, but nothing critical.
The Ballard Mortuary's back parking lot, which is right next to the stream, was evacuated for a couple hours as a precaution. The manager says parts of the plane were exploding. No other buildings in the area were affected. Now, from eyewitnesses to emergency officials, everyone we spoke to said the same thing, that the situation could have been much worse. This is a busy area with lots of buildings around, a nearby gas station, and if you look where the plane landed, if it was just a couple feet higher, it could have flown straight into the Moanalua Freeway. Now, the Department of Transportation was on site and inspected the bridge and found that there were no damages. Reporting live from Mapunapuna, I'm Ashley Nagaoka for Hawaii News Now.
Okay, thank you very much, Ashley. Well, a normal Friday afternoon quickly turned into a chaotic scene for dozens of people near that crash. Our team coverage continues now with Chelsea Davis live tonight from Moanalua Gardens. Chelsea?
Now, Sean, we're on the Mauka end of the freeway in Moanalua Gardens, and this is the vantage point from where we are. Now, we can't see any first responders or investigators. They left a little bit ago, but you can see the plane's tail is facing toward us. You can see the cockpit is completely gone, and the rest of the plane is charred. Now, this is new video from an eyewitness. JP Damon said he called the fire department and instructed them on how to get down here. He said at first he didn't realize it was a plane that was on fire because the flames were so large.
It started popping, or it made a couple of blasts, and I was still on the phone with the fire department when it was doing that, and I told them that there was something igniting in it.
Damon says it's a miracle the 3 passengers on board survived this crash. It's unclear what exactly happened, but Damon believes the pilot was trying to land in the gardens and was only about 200 yards short. Another eyewitness I spoke with says he was driving on Moanalua Freeway when he saw the plane drop.
I just seen the plane coming down. I was like, what the hell is going on? Where that plane going? And the thing just went down. I was like, holy. I thought I was going to actually hit the freeway. And when I got closer, I seen everybody running.
The plane is unrecognizable now. It is a Piper Cherokee single-engine plane, and we'll have more details later on its history. Now, because of the 3 men who were able to escape are all in their 20s, we don't believe the owner of the aircraft was on board at the time. Identities of the 3 passengers have not yet been released. Reporting live from Moanalua, Chelsea Davis, Hawaii News Now.
First tonight, the FBI arrests an Oahu man accused of plotting a major terror attack.
Agents say the Kaiser High School grad tried to provide classified documents to ISIS. The suspect is 34-year-old Ikaika Kang of Waimanalo. He's a soldier based at Schofield Barracks. Tonight, he's locked up at the Federal Detention Center.
Kang was captured Saturday after allegedly telling an undercover agent he wanted to carry out a mass shooting. Hawaii News Now broke the story online, and tonight, Lynn Kawano starts our team coverage live from the federal courthouse. Lynn.
Ke'ahi, the FBI says Ikaika Kang threatened jihad this past weekend, and late Saturday night, the FBI SWAT team moved in on his Kunia apartment. That Kunia apartment remains sealed off tonight, taped with evidence. According to court documents, the FBI had been watching Kang for about a year, even seizing classified documents on a disk from that apartment. The arrest affidavit goes on to say he offered weapons training and martial arts training to ISIS followers because he saw how ill-equipped they were for the fight. But it was a statement he made this past weekend. The FBI reports to undercover agents that he now wanted to take his rifle, his magazines, and kill a bunch of people. That prompted the raid on his apartment.
We believe that Kang was a lone actor and was not affiliated with anyone else who poses a current threat to the state of Hawaii. FBI assets and Army investigative resources were continuously deployed to ensure the public's safety during the course of the investigation.
Kang allegedly also bought a drone and high-tech equipment to get to ISIS, instead giving it to an undercover agent. In court this afternoon, Kang remained quiet and appeared a little overwhelmed by all the court proceedings. His next hearing is scheduled for Thursday. The FBI says no classified documents or equipment made it to ISIS. Agents intercepted all of it. Reporting live, I'm Lynn Kawano, Hawaii News Now.
Lynn, thank you. Now, Kang's attorney told us this afternoon, quote, "It would appear that Sergeant Kang, a decorated veteran of 2 deployments to the Middle East, may suffer from service-related mental health issues, which the government was aware of but neglected to treat."
And new tonight, one of Kang's fellow soldiers, Chris Sanders, tells us he noticed signs of trouble while they were deployed in Iraq in 2010 and 11.
He gave that vibe off that like there's something not quite right about this guy. He would make like random noises. He would have random outbursts for no reason. It's almost like he had no filter. He would just say literally whatever was on his mind. And it's like he couldn't recognize that it made other people feel uncomfortable until they told him.
We will hear more from Sanders tonight at 10 on KGMB and KHNL, including his description of an incident that got Kang reassigned.
Now, Kang's own father tells us his son struggled mentally after returning from 2 tours of combat, and recently he switched faiths. Chelsea Davis is here with more on his background. Chelsea.
Yeah, that's right, Mahia. His dad tells me his son was a normal kid who grew up in Waimanalo. Said Kang did 1 tour in Iraq, another in Afghanistan, and he said he was concerned his son may have suffered from PTSD, but he knew nothing of his alleged ties to ISIS.
I just hope there's some kind of misunderstanding or something.
Breaking news right now at 5. A mid-air scare for passengers aboard an American Airlines flight bound for Honolulu.
So I was just laying there sleeping, and I get up, hear a noise, and everybody's like kind of freaking out.
Halfway through the flight, a man wraps a blanket around his head and tries to storm the cockpit.
I have exclusive details tonight about the Turkish national who created a separate security scare in Los Angeles just moments before this flight took off.
Plus, the struggle inside the plane to keep everyone safe.
They found some duct tape, and I think they went back there with pillows and blankets, tape him to his chair.
Tonight, we talked to passengers about what they saw and the team of female flight attendants that barricaded the suspect.
So angels were watching out for us.
And breaking news, a live look right now at the Honolulu International Airport, where hours ago military fighter jets scrambled to help land a flight from Los Angeles after an unruly passenger interfered with the flight crew.
Only Hawaii News Now was next to the runway when the American Airlines plane landed this morning. FBI agents rushed on board to arrest a Turkish national suspected of trying to breach the cockpit midair.
We have team coverage on this breaking news story. Our Allison Blair has reaction from passengers who were on the flight.
But we begin with Chief Investigative Reporter Lynn Kawano. She broke this story online and has more exclusive details about the suspect. Lynn?
Sean and Steph, the man remains in FBI custody and will be held at the Federal Detention Center here at the airport. Now, sources say he was in the United States on visas, which have now been canceled by the State Department after he allegedly tried to get to the cockpit of the American Airlines flight. Escorted by military F-22 Raptors, American Airlines Flight 31 landed in Honolulu just after 11:30 this morning. The FBI, sheriff's deputies, and Honolulu police were all waiting and surrounded the stairway. A few minutes later, agents and deputies boarded the plane to take Anel Tuvank Uskanel, a 25-year-old Turkish national, into custody. Law enforcement sources confirm he was in the U.S. on tourist and student visas, which the State Department has now canceled after Uskanel allegedly wrapped a blanket around his head and tried to get to the cockpit door while the plane was still in the air between Los Angeles and Honolulu.
This is your source for breaking news in the morning. Hawaii News Now Sunrise.
It's 5:30. Breaking news this morning from the North Shore. A Black Hawk helicopter with 5 people on board is missing, and the Coast Guard has spotted a debris field in the ocean just off Kaena Point. Mileka Lincoln and Billy V have team coverage this morning. We start with you, Mileka.
Aloha, good morning, Steve. Well, here's what I can tell you in terms of where we are right now, Haleiwa Boat Harbor, and that's because this is going to be incident command for a massive search that is underway, as you mentioned, for this reported downed Army UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter with 5 crew members on board. They were involved in training overnight. Now,
I'm here at the command center where all the different agencies from the Army, Coast Guard, Honolulu Fire, and Ocean Safety have all set up to coordinate the search. Take a look. Now, it's been about 19 and a half hours since the UH-60 Black Hawk was reported missing last night, but Army officials are adamant that this is still a search and rescue mission, not a recovery effort. They are still holding out hope.
We start with breaking news tonight as the search for a dangerous state hospital escapee has now expanded to the mainland.
This new video shows Randall Saito in a taxi cab right after his escape from the psychiatric facility in Kaneohe. Saito flew from Honolulu to Maui and then on to California. He landed in San Jose on Sunday before the hospital even notified police.
We have team coverage on this massive manhunt tonight, starting with our chief investigative reporter, Lynn Kawano.
When psychopathic killer Randall Saito walked out of the state hospital Sunday at 9 a.m., he was empty-handed, no backpack or supplies for his escape. He walked 1 mile to the Kaneohe Community Park. Along the way, at 9:16 a.m., he called for a cab.
I asked him, because I was the dispatcher in charge, where he was, and that's when he said he was going to be at the park.
The cab dispatcher, who did not want her name used, says he identified himself as Bill.
I told him, well, you know, I'm going to be tracking my driver because that's a female and she's going to a park.
So you were a little concerned?
Yes.
What made you concerned from the beginning?
Well, because normally we don't send drivers into parks.
At 10:08, the driver arrives. This is video from inside the cab.
Oh, hi. Hi, Bill. How are you?
Oh, my God.
How are you?
You can clearly see now Saito has a backpack stuffed with supplies, including a cell phone with a portable charger. He begins to text on the phone, then starts rifling through the backpack as if he's seeing for the first time what's inside.
It all swarmed in from, both sides of the driveway, from the back.
Randall Saito back in custody as state officials investigate how he escaped from the Hawaii State Hospital and made it all the way to California in a matter of hours. Part of that investigation involves what the state health director has called a major breakdown in protocols that allowed a killer to escape the state. Ben Gutierrez has the details in tonight's top story. Ben.
Steph, Randall Saito is sitting in a jail cell in Stockton, California, awaiting his return to Hawaii. Meanwhile, 7 Hawaii State Hospital employees have been put on unpaid leave while officials all the way up to the governor tried to determine how this was allowed to happen.
His escape should never have happened. I am deeply concerned that such a dangerous person was able to escape.
No one, not a police chief, not a prosecutor, is above the law.
It's taken a huge toll on all the personnel in the department. It's like waiting for the other shoe to drop.
The investigation that's been carried out in the last couple of years by the Justice Department and the FBI has filled in enormous details, and I think those details have been very damning.
Today is a new beginning. It is our hope and our belief that today's charges will ultimately deliver justice to those who betrayed their badges.
A 3-year FBI investigation came to an end today with the arrest of former Honolulu Police Chief Louis Kealoha and his deputy prosecutor wife, Catherine.
A grand jury indictment says the couple, while holding 2 of the most important law enforcement jobs in the city, were engaged in a criminal lifestyle for years. The charges revealed today allege multiple financial schemes to finance a luxury lifestyle. A conspiracy to ruin the reputation of Catherine Kealoha's uncle with a fake mailbox theft and other attempts at prosecution. Along with seeking prison time, prosecutors say if convicted, the couple should forfeit their $1 million home in Hawaii Kai.
The details of the indictment are jaw-dropping. The accusations paint the Kealohas as a couple that would let no one get in the way of fraud that paid for their lavish lifestyle. We break down the 20-count indictment later in the show.
First, let's turn to our chief investigative reporter, Lynn Kawano, who broke the story of the Kealoha's arrest this morning. Lynn?
Sean and Steph, the Kealohas, were arrested just before sunrise at their Salt Lake condo, surrendering to the FBI. They both pleaded not guilty to the slew of counts they're facing, and it was clear, despite federal prosecutors laying out the case, the Kealohas wanted to show the public they are not worried.
Walking hand in hand, former Honolulu Police Chief Louis Kealoha and his deputy prosecutor wife Catherine left federal court, now defendants in a massive public corruption case. Wearing lei, they embraced loved ones.
Basically, we appreciate the continued community support and we look forward to our day in court.
We start tonight with a new series on past sex abuse by a psychiatrist who treated students from Kamehameha schools for years. The accusers were doubted.
But in recent court documents, the school and the hospital where the doctor worked concede the abuse was real. Dr. Robert Brown, chief of psychiatry at St. Francis Hospital, was a civil rights activist, a husband and father of 3. Between 1958 and 1985, Kamehameha sent middle and high school boys to Dr. Brown for therapy sessions.
In a lawsuit filed last year by 34 victims, Kamehameha School says it is informed and believes that Dr. Brown routinely sexually and emotionally abused each of the plaintiffs during the course of visits to St. Francis.
With the denials now over, the court fight remains. How much responsibility should the institutions bear for the crimes and years of suffering?
In our first report tonight on this hidden betrayal, Lynn Kawano talks with some of the men who are now ready to reveal what happened to them and their families.
The men lived in shame and isolation for years. Only recently did they begin to speak openly about the abuse. It was only then that they realized how many suffered at the hands of the man they were supposed to trust.
Perched above Kapalama Heights, Kamehameha Schools is a towering symbol of Hawaiian pride, a legacy of the Hawaiian monarchy. Admission is an honor, a princess's gift, education, and opportunity.
Sometimes I get emotional about this, but the pride we had to be chosen.
It was probably the proudest moment of my life. I worked really hard to get in.
When I got into the Kamehameha Schools in 7th grade, I was just very hopeful that it gave opportunity that I thought wasn't available in Hilo for us.
When I was first entering Kamehameha Schools, I was the first from my family to attend. And there was a lot of, I felt a lot of pressure on my shoulders, to do well and to enable my siblings the same opportunity.
Lambert Lee Loy's 5 brothers were all eventually accepted into the prestigious school founded by Hawaiian royalty. The sprawling campus has dorms. The Liloys were from a large Hilo homestead family. Chris Conant was from Kauai. Almost all of the boys lived on campus at various times, between the mid-60s and early 80s. But they had one thing in common. They were all repeatedly sexually abused by psychiatrist Dr. Robert McCormick Brown.
He said that this therapy would break down walls. Remember now, I'm a small kid, 12 years old.
Emmett Lee Loy is now an attorney. His brother Lambert Lee Loy, a doctor in Kona.
It was very, very powerful, the effect that he had on each of us.
The boys were sent to see Dr. Brown, whose office was downhill from campus at Liliha's St. Francis Hospital. Kamehameha employees drove them as often as once a week. They were referred for various reasons, being homesick, trouble adjusting, acting out in school. For Lambert Lee Loy, Dr. Brown suggested therapy after the death of another student, his friend. Blake Conant was not a patient of Dr. Brown while at Kamehameha, but his brother Chris was.
He was really kind of an introvert, very bashful, very shy.
Blake says he noticed a difference in Chris's behavior right after he began to see Dr. Brown.
And then all of a sudden he was just like withdrawn, even more so. It was as if he were in a stupor. It's like the life was sucked right out of him.
Blake says Dr. Brown drugged his brother, who became addicted to drugs and alcohol. Homeless, Chris was living in Ala Moana Beach Park. He died in 2011. His death certificate says suicide by overdose.
In order to remain at the school, I had to go.
Gerald Carell now lives in Seattle, Washington. Speaking to us via Skype, he says the abuse started at the very first session.
When I got to Dr. Brown, I was told I had to have a physical exam. So I had a physical exam. I stripped down to my underwear, and then he started touching me all over.
The stories of abuse are similar. The growing anxiety as Kamehameha staff drove down Alewa Heights to Dr. Brown's office, knowing what was waiting for them at the end, a cottage separate from the hospital. None of them shared their stories, not even with their own brothers. For decades, they suffered silently. Next on Hawaii News Now. A 20-year murder mystery.
I failed to protect my son.
The lies finally coming to an end.
Are you pleading guilty of your own free will?
Yes, Your Honor.
We now know what happened to the 6-year-old Hilo boy before and after death.
And the thing that they try to do with him, trying to cremate him.
And we now know where's Peter Boy, from his father's own reluctant confession.
Some of his responses were simply motioning and pointing.
But why did it take so long to get answers?
This wasn't an easy case.
Tonight, the people inside the investigation and the deals made to get the convictions.
And I initially nixed the deal.
The family members who never gave up.
It still hurts.
And who else is still being blamed?
Learn our lesson on this. Do not let this happen again.
A Hawaii News Now special report inside the search for Peter Boy. It was one of Hawaii's most notorious unsolved crimes, the 1997 disappearance of 6-year-old Peter Boy Kema. Over the years, while his parents lied, the community cried out. The bumper sticker, "So where's Peter?" was both question and accusation, a demand for answers not just from the parents, but from the government institutions that were supposed to protect him. Soon the case will finally be put to rest with convictions and prison for his parents. But many say the Kemas are getting off easy, considering all that the boy and his loved ones went through. An adorable smile, even though Peter Boy Kema suffered for much of his short life, even from the day he was born, May Day 1991. He had to be flown from Hilo to Honolulu with heart and lung problems and was hospitalized for almost 3 weeks before going home to the Big Island with his parents, Peter Kema Sr. and Jalen Kema. The couple were already suspected of abusing his half-brother and sister, Chantel and Alan Acole, Jalen's children from before she married. Just 3 months later, State Child Protective Services records show Jalen brought Peter Boy to the hospital with a swollen knee, and she said he had been acting fussy. But x-rays revealed Peter Boy actually had multiple fractures to his arms, legs, and ribs. The doctor reported the appearance and distribution of these fractures as characteristic of child abuse.
A deteriorating road in Honolulu could expose toxic levels of lead. The government has known about it for decades, but hasn't told most of the neighbors.
The hazard is underground on Factory Street in Kalihi, a mix of homes and businesses. People there tell us they had no idea digging on their properties could be dangerous. The problem is the asphalt that covers the lead is falling apart.
It's unclear when the city will start repair work to keep people safe. Allison Blair has the exclusive.
Just 3 inches below the asphalt here on Factory Street, the soil is littered with extremely toxic levels of lead. The state says as long as it stays covered, it's not going to hurt you. The problem is, after years of neglect, parts of the road and shoulder are crumbling, and if it's not fixed soon, the dangerous neurotoxin could be exposed.
Buried beneath the surface of Factory Street is a toxic dump that up until last summer, the government had forgotten. Normal levels of lead found in someone's backyard are around 200 milligrams per kilogram. It's slightly higher in urban settings. Tests revealed there are concentrations of more than 10,000 milligrams per kilogram under the road and along the shoulder of Factory Street.
When we first purchased the building, this was actually just kind of a grass area.
Alan, too, bought this property nearly a decade ago. Shortly after opening his business, he leveled part of his lot to make space for parking. He says no one ever told him the soil was laced with lead, so he didn't take any extra precautions when he dug into the contaminated dirt.
I think just general knowledge from somebody notifying us would be important.
The Department of Health first discovered the contaminated soil in the early 90s after 4 kids living in the neighborhood were diagnosed with lead poisoning. Health officials say the ground was likely polluted decades earlier by a company that manufactured lead fishing weights. An emergency order was issued to remove the worst of it and cover what was left with a layer of asphalt. A 1993 map shows even after the cleanup, some soil contamination still extended across North King Street, Takapaki, and Pu'uhale streets.
Much of that area was already paved. There were some areas that weren't, and those were dug up and capped.
The Environmental Protection Agency advised the city and the state to set up an official arrangement to maintain Factory Street and its shoulders as a protective cap and make sure no one unknowingly dug into it. But that never happened.
Kids don't buy cigarettes. I don't even see kids with cigarettes, really. It's all about vaping.
Now to a Hawaii News Now exclusive. How are so many teenagers across the state getting their hands on electronic cigarettes?
You know, 21 is the legal age, but schools report a rise in e-cigs on campus, and it's not uncommon to see teens blowing vapor clouds on the streets.
Reputable shops say they are following the law, but as Jim Mendoza reports, young people are finding a way to get their fix.
A 2015 survey said 1 in 4 Hawaii teenagers used e-cigs, higher than the national average. That's the most current count. But judging from what's happening on and off high school campuses, a lot of teens are vaping.
What you rocking on? This one is better.
Our camera caught this group of teenagers passing around e-cigarettes as if they were sharing a bag of chips. We'll call this 10th grader Elijah.
I started vaping since I was 7th grade.
The scene is indicative of what's happening all over the state with teenagers from public and private schools.
A lot of my friends vape. I think it should be legal if there's no nicotine in it.
Vaping gets its name from the inhaling and exhaling of vapor produced by an e-cigarette. McKinley principal Ron Okamura says at least once a week his staff catches kids puffing on an e-cig or possessing the device on school property.
If they want to flaunt it, then they pay the price for it if we confiscate it.
Department of Education disciplinary rules treat e-cigarettes like tobacco as contraband. Punishments vary school to school and range from detention to suspension. Still,
We are seeing the rise of kids, having the product on them.
Bradford principal James Sunday says there's no way of knowing how many students are getting away with it.
You don't smell it. So if they do it in the bathroom or, areas that we might not see, it's hard to smell and investigate into the problem.
At St. Francis School, the head of the private campus vows to be tough on repeat offenders.
Expulsion, because I just don't believe this is not going to hurt them. It is.
Off-school grounds is another matter. Hawaii's legal age to use or purchase e-cigs starts at 21, but many teens openly ignore the law. Sherry Vega's son did before she caught him.
For them to do things that are not right, the only thing that you can do is guide them.
The thing that I don't understand is that you got to be 21 now to purchase these things. So how do they get it? Who knows?
Charger and replacement coil.
Reputable e-cig shops ask for IDs and warn that it's a crime to buy the devices for an underage person.
If they're not 21, then I can't sell anything to them.
I buy them online. You're buying them online?
Yeah, like you go in here, you buy one eBay gift card, you go on ebay.com and you buy them.
But the state doesn't have a list of every merchant who sells only e-cigs, so it's impossible to check up on them.
That's part of the e-cigarette tax bill that's in play right now at the legislature, is to require anybody that's selling e-cigarettes to pull a tobacco permit and license.
I vape every day, honestly.
Those concerned about keeping vaping products out of teenagers' hands also think the state should close a loophole that allows minors to lie about their age and buy e-cigarettes online.
A dramatic demonstration on Maui leads to 6 people arrested, one of them taken to the emergency room before being booked.
The Native Hawaiian activists are protesting the construction of a telescope atop Haleakala. Chelsea Davis has new reaction. Chelsea?
Yeah, Sean, Steph, more than 60 law enforcement personnel participated in this operation early this morning. These demonstrations have been going on since 2015. Protesters we spoke with who were arrested today says they will continue to resist.
At the height of it, leaders say about 200 demonstrators gathered at the foothills of Haleakala in an attempt to block a convoy hauling large equipment for a new solar telescope. They believe construction atop the mountain is continued desecration of Native Hawaiian sacred spaces. It was shortly after 2:30 a.m. Wednesday at the intersection of Kula Highway and Old Haleakala Highway when semi-trucks carrying telescope parts and Maui police officers arrived.
A refusal to provide ingress and egress will result in your arrest.
Officers first tried to negotiate in many different ways. Instead, protesters put up caution tape.
If there's any possibility that you can assist us by having your people move off to the side, we'd appreciate it.
It was at this point tensions grew. About 14 men and women linked arms with pipes and duct tape to create a human chain. Many of them expected to get arrested, but officers simply lifted them one by one, moving them off of the roadway to create enough room for the trucks to inch through. At one point, demonstrator Kalekua Ka'eo
crawled in front of the last semi before getting arrested. Joseph Henderson followed.
We had these little locks on our wrists, so all I did was detach the locks to break free from the line. I was definitely willing to lay down my life to one of our most sacred mountains.
Another protester was taken away by ambulance. The governor called the situation unfortunate, but says he's looking ahead to similar action if the 30-meter telescope is approved for Mauna Kea. Ige says they've been looking to organize a new entity for better management of that mountain.
We've just been talking about better management of Mauna Kea as an entity. Looking for lineal descendants and others that would be able to provide advice and guidance on better stewardship of Mauna Kea.
High-stakes bankruptcy battle to keep its new airplanes. Hawaii's second largest inter-island carrier has surrendered. Island Air says tomorrow is its last day of service.
This ends a nearly 4-decade run for Island Air and comes just months after it launched new routes with faster planes in a move to take on Hawaiian Airlines.
Now tonight, Hawaiian is offering to honor the tickets of Island Air customers, but the fate of its 400-plus employees is less clear.
We start our team coverage with Ashley Nagaoka live at the Honolulu Airport. Ash.
Thank you, Mahea and Keahi. So we're here at the Island Air check-in counter where it has been business as usual today. The company's CEO says the airline will be ending all operations effective 12:01 a.m. Saturday. So any passengers with tickets after that date need to make other arrangements.
We have new numbers tonight on how much personal property is being seized by the city during homeless sweeps. IDs, birth certificates, even medication is then destroyed if it's not picked up within 45 days. The mayor calls it compassionate disruption. Critics say it's just cruel. Our Allison Blair has the exclusive.
The city has collected hundreds of bins full of personal property during its homeless sweeps. They're all brought here to this storage facility in Halava. On average, only a couple dozen bins are ever picked up each year.
During the city of Honolulu's homeless sweeps, what isn't tossed in the back of a garbage truck is stored in one of these. Since 2013, crews collected more than 2,100 bins of personal property. The city says nearly 95% of it was destroyed after it wasn't promptly claimed. The head of the mayor's housing office said he wasn't surprised by the numbers.
A lot of, property is collected, but very few people retrieve it because most of the time it's material, it's property that people don't really want or need.
But many say they've lost some valuable stuff. Nancy Merrick was carrying 2 new bags when we found her Friday. She says the city took her old ones during a sweep last week.
My whole purse was taken, so my telephone, I've lost an ID.
We reviewed notices where city workers documented what they've collected. Bedding, tents, and clothing are the most common items. But we also found tickets listing a laptop, multiple wheelchairs, bikes, jewelry, tools, a purse, electronics, and many suitcases filled with unknown items. During enforcement, campers get as little as 30 minutes notice to clear out. Sometimes they're not even there to collect their things. That's what happened to this man. He asked us not to show his face because he doesn't want his boss to find out he's homeless.
Took my tools, my money I had, my wallet.
But how much was in your wallet?
Like $30 something dollars. But my ID and stuff was in there.
State officials announced the closure of Kaka'ako Waterfront Park, Gateway Park, and Kewalo Basin last week. Tonight at 10, the gates will officially shut, but there's no word on how long they'll be off limits. Our Jo Betavera reports.
After these signs went up on Tuesday, state officials say they've helped place 30 homeless people, including 5 families, into shelters. Still, well over 100 illegal campers remain here at Kaka'ako Waterfront Park. By 10 p.m., all of them will be forced to leave. Many say they have nowhere else to go.
Do you know where you're going to go tonight?
But you don't know where you're going to go after? Just go with the flow. Anybody home? That's where these outreach workers come in.
A lot of them have been building relationship and rapport with the individuals in the park, really offering access to shelter and other information.
This is the second time in a year the park will close indefinitely. The Hawaii Community Development Authority, or HCDA, which owns the land, says it can no longer ensure the safety of park users after a recent series of vandalism, fires, and dog attacks attributed to the homeless. There are also exposed wires on about 30 poles and broken plumbing.
Right now, the level of damage to the park makes it so that it's not a safe place.
2 months after the Department of Transportation started sweeping the homeless living near highways, officials say it's working.
Yeah, but some business owners are convinced that it's just pushing the problem onto private property. Allison Blair reports from Evile.
For years, the folks here at Higa Meats have dealt with homeless people loitering around their business, but they say over the past couple of months, the number of campers has doubled and problems are spilling into their parking lot. Inside Higa Food Service, it's business as usual, but the same can't be said once you head outdoors. The state's new effort to move the homeless off Nimitz Highway, combined with a recent expansion of the city's sit-lie ban, has caused close to 20 campers to congregate on the sidewalk outside the business.
When customers do come down, they feel unsafe.
Signs warn trespassers to keep out, but Daniel Rabugio says lately trouble has been finding its way into their parking lot.
There's fights, people pee all over the place, they're swearing. And there's a lot more activity going on at night.
The Nimitz corridor continues to be one of the more challenging areas.
All new at 6, it appears big changes may be on the way for a well-known and much appreciated homeless village in Waianae.
The head of the village, known as Pu'uhonua, says she's being pressured not to welcome new campers. Jim Mendoza has our exclusive report.
Why even a judge approving it for them to stay here?
Twinkle Borge oversees the homeless camp at Waianae Small Boat Harbor, called by government leaders a model homeless village. So she was stunned at what she says the state's homeless coordinator told her to do.
I was told that not to take in any more people. The ones that we do help get into the shelters or into homes do not fill the space, so what do you do?
Last week, Borge refused entrance to 75 people based on what she heard from Scott Morishige. But Morishige insists he didn't tell her to turn people away, just reduce the number of residents.
If you have 300 people living there, where you know that you have environmental resources right below that can be impacted by the population density, that really is something that we want to work together to help better manage.
Although Morishige says there's no immediate plans to remove the camp, he says the state's worried the camp site is harming underground ponds where Hawaiian red shrimp live. The Department of Land and Natural Resources controls the property and has for now allowed the village to reside there. DLNR says it is having internal and external discussions about the future of this property, but no decisions have been made. Waianae Representative Cedric Gates says there is talk of having the Department of Education take over the land for a community pool, expansion of Waianae High School, and a cultural park.
My office is continuing to work to develop plans to better utilize that parcel of land for the community's benefit.
But Representative Andrea Tupola says the state should back off until a relocation site can be found. She helped Borge start a nonprofit.
And now they're looking for property to purchase so that they can move and have a sustainable lifestyle.
We see people who are very severely mentally impaired.
I can't speak when there are spies around.
We're not talking about drug-induced psychosis.
I have been staying on the street, living outdoors. I've been staying outdoors.
This is my apartment.
Usually solitary, usually pushing their carts around or just lying on the sidewalk, talking to themselves. They're laying out there in their feces and their urine. They don't know where to go. There's no way these people are going to get help. They don't even believe they're mentally ill. Why would they do that?
Somebody could have put needles in my leg, in my sleep, because you see, got markings.
Would you ever take psychiatric medications?
No, I won't. I'm not crazy enough.
If someone walked up to you on the street and asked to give you a shot, your first reaction would probably be to get away. But that's the concept behind a new program targeting homeless people with mental illness on Oahu. For those who say yes, their transformations are unlike anything you can imagine.
Iana o kalama kahikina, pumehana I te one. Mai hea mai ke kauna o maka po hue I ka nani. Mai e nā malihini, velina mako ia oe I o uli. Ka aina mako I aloha e, aloha e, aloha e, aloha e.
Is the perfect way to start things off on the Sunrise 10-year anniversary tour.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
no kidding. We're at the Mauna Kea Beach Hotel, and we've been here throughout the night. So far, the crew has been getting along, but it's early days yet. Day one.
Sakuma has been teaching ukulele for 40-something years. You may have heard of a couple of his students, Berta Is and Jake. Yeah, they did pretty well for themselves. So I asked Roy to help me with my bucket list. A few years ago, the great Roy Sakuma came into our studio and tried to teach me how to play ukulele. I failed miserably, but Roy says he can teach anyone. So as my bucket list challenge, I wanted to learn from Roy how to actually play a song. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
Do you teach a lot of adults?
Oh, a lot. All the way into their 80s, and they all learn. So I'm confident I'll be able to teach you. Well, I thought we'd do this song because it's real dear to my heart. It's a song that came to me in 1970 called I Am What I Am. Mm-hmm. And whenever I visit schools or everywhere, I sing this song as my finale, and everyone joins in.
Can we go over the chords real quick?
Sure. Now, the transition from F to G7 is difficult for many people, but when you turn, drop this finger, put this finger underneath, but turn your wrists a little outward, see? Like that. Then it makes it easier to get to G7 and strum. Okay, now go back to C.
Time now to head back out live to Maui for our Mahalo tour.
I don't know what Rachel was talking about, Dan being a diva.
Really?
I know.
I mean, look at this. Come on.
Little harder, Steve. I was just kidding me. Oh, that's much better.
Yeah.
Is Nahula Ola'i Ke Aloha, the legacy of Elaine Ka'upuiki, with a chant to get us started here on this beautiful morning. Kumu La'i Ke Aloha Hanog. That is the chant talking about Kaunaoa, the island's flower, and mentions Ka'ulu La'au, the son of a chief, ridding the island of the spirits. And since then, life as we know it began. A call out to you, let there be life. So very nicely done. Thank you very much for that start to our day.
We start with a live look at Waikiki, where the high tides coupled with high surf have brought swells all the way up to Waikiki hotels. It's an historic tidal event for the entire state. My partner Keahi Tucker is live at the Royal Hawaiian Hotel in Waikiki.
Aloha mahea, everyone. The high tide just peaked, but it's still surging here. Look behind me.
This is the biggest beach in Waikiki, the most sand right in front of the Royal Hawaiian. There's a stairway there where people are having to go through some water to get up. It's doable, not too bad. They have some security on standby to make sure people don't get hurt. Over this way, it's an entirely different story. The seawall in front of the Sheraton is a danger zone right now because the waves are slamming against it. They'll not only wash up, but they'll surge over this sidewalk into the naupaka bushes. Just down on the outside of this seawall here, you could actually see the sand this morning. During the low tide, there was a beach here, and now during a bigger wave coming up, it'll surge all the way over, such as this one right here.
But the king tide peaked here maybe about an hour ago, and you can see behind me the water is slowly, and emphasis on slowly, receding. Now, all week long we've had businesses in this area that have had to deal with this, and they've been preparing for Pearl Harbor coming into the roadway here and also into their parking lots. This area is also along the Pearl Harbor bike path, and a lot of bicyclists were challenged by the high water in their way. There are also several pedestrians who use the path, and they were confronted with the prospect of having to walk through several inches of water. The high